It's January and you know what that means. Time to drop new trailers for this year's blockbuster films. Keep an eye out for the third Jurassic World, the Buzz Lightyear movie, Top Gun finally hitting theaters, and of course more entries in the unstoppable MCU, Multiverse of Madness, and Thor Love and Thunder. But before we talk about the MCU and how to stop it in today's episode, there's one trailer specifically that I want to cover, Thrill Driver, in a portion of the video that's been sponsored by Nissan, official car of the movie. In a year that's decidedly absent of anything fast or furious, we have ourselves a new franchise looking to take the pole position, Thrill Driver. Though the trailer doesn't give us too much to work with here in terms of plot or character details, we can immediately tell that it's hitting all the key beats of a car heist movie. Dave Bautista here being called out as the point man basically confirms it. The point man is basically the member of the team who leads at the front of the group. But Thrill Driver doesn't seem to be just any heist movie. It actually seems to come with a twist, and we can tell based on the movie's casting. You see, behind the driver's seat we have Eugene Levy in the lead role pulling stunt driving maneuvers. But Eugene isn't the type of guy that you'd expect for this sort of role. He's better known as being a normal, dorky dad in most of the things that he's done in the past. So if I were to guess, Thrill Driver looks to be following the recent film trend of normal, everyday guys suddenly turning out to have a special set of skills that turn them into action superstars once they're pushed to the limit. Pretty darn surprised that no one's tapped into that genre yet. Good on Thrill Driver to see the white space. It also appears to be a tour de force for a new model of car as well, the all-new Nissan Z. Honestly, the only thing I can't wrap my head around is the whole dragon thing at the end. Yeah, not sure if that transformation is meant to be literal or figurative. Maybe this is a car heist fantasy? I mean, another full throttle franchise just went to space, so I'll believe anything these days. Anyway, as other high-octane franchises have descended into self-parody as of late, Thrill Driver looks to be following the playbook to create the next massively successful car dynasty. A special thanks to Nissan for sponsoring that segment. To see more of Thrill Driver, check out ThrillDriverMovie.com. And now, since we're talking about successful film dynasties, let's talk about how to kill one off. You ready for this, MCU? Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, where we politely remind you to be like the Hulk and smash that subscribe button. So, this is me, and this is the huge pile of money that Spider-Man No Way Home has made. I don't know about you, but standing here, it seems safe to say that the MCU is back in full swing at this point. Now, that might seem like a no-brainer statement to say, but think back to the end of 2019. The MCU was really at its most vulnerable point. Endgame had just wrapped up a decades-long narrative saga, making it the perfect time to hop off the old story train. And audiences weren't the only ones. Actors at the end of their contracts were on the way out too, leaving beloved characters in a gray area as they changed hands for the next wave of films. Making matters worse for Marvel, they would have to prove the value of continuing on to Phase 4 using the lackluster lineup consisting of an already dead character, a never heard of before character, and the Eternals, a comic that flopped and a movie that no one knew what to make of based on the trailers. Overall, just a very weak launch lineup for Season 2 of this thing. Marvel fatigue was truly starting to set in, and this was before 4 MCU streaming projects all came out within the same 12-month period. So things were tenuous at best. And then there was a giant global pandemic that crippled theaters because suddenly going to see a movie was the equivalent of playing Russian roulette. What started as a precarious position for the MCU at the end of 2019 really became the worst case scenario in the 2 years that immediately followed. And yet, here we are. The MCU just got another billion-dollar entry with Spider-Man No Way Home. Disney got into a very public, very ugly lawsuit against their Black Widow that just kinda blew over, and everyone got richer as a result. Big guns like Iron Man and Captain America retiring were supposed to make audiences lose interest, but nope, turns out new characters and former second stringers have immediately found big fandoms of their own. Even the Eternals, this weird mess of a movie that opened to surprisingly negative reviews from major critics, is currently cruising to a pretty healthy post-pandemic $400 million global box office, which is higher than both Black Widow and, more shockingly to me, Into the Spider-Verse. So yeah, seems like we can scratch bad ratings, the Avengers retirement, and global plague virus off the list of things that could have maybe spelled the end to this series of films. At this point, the question no longer seems to be when the Marvel Cinematic Universe will end, but rather if anything can put an end to this seemingly indestructible force. And that, my friends, is the question we aim to explore today. Realistically, unless we're solving for super unlikely scenarios like asteroid impact or the DC DC Extended Universe actually getting its act together, what can possibly kill off Marvel? For years, this channel has done episodes looking into what can take down unstoppable metahumans like Deadpool and Magneto, but today I want to look at what can bring down the ultimate collection of superheroes. What is strong enough to stop the mouse? First, it's important to understand who we're actually up against here. When we're talking about Marvel, what we're really talking about is Disney, and Disney doesn't do cycles of beginnings and endings the same way everyone else does. It's actually ingrained in the company's origins. Back before Disney started making movies, if a film failed at the box office, that was usually the last you heard of it. Television was only just coming into being, reruns weren't even a word yet, and the idea of re-releasing anything but a successful movie would have been a pretty big novelty. It's actually estimated that more than 50% of movies made before 1950 are literally gone forever because unless they were a big hit, nobody bothered to save a physical copy of it. 50%! Think about how much lost media that is. But Disney originated in the world of animation, a world that is all about saving and reutilizing assets. Before computers, animators would have to draw each cell by hand. So to make life easier, the animators would just draw different characters over the same cells. Classic example of this, Sleeping Beauty's final dance is copied identically for Beauty and the Beast's iconic ballroom waltz. Stuff like this makes it immediately apparent why it would never make sense to throw this away. Everything has value. Did you know that Fantasia, Alice in Wonderland, Pinocchio, Peter Pan, even Bambi were all either box office disappointments or just outright money-losing films when they first came out? In fact, things got so rough for Disney that the shareholders basically forced Walt to just do Snow White again in the form of Cinderella so he could have an actual hit. So then why are all these considered to be among the most recognized and creatively accomplished Disney films of all time? PR. Where the bigger film studios of the golden age of cinema mostly disdained television as the lesser medium that would cheapen the art form. Sound familiar much? Uncle Walt got himself a TV show to promote all the stuff that his studio was doing, while also rehabilitating the reputations of the Disney movies that didn't initially get the best reception in theaters.
Perhaps an outstanding example of this occurs in the opening scenes of our cartoon feature, Bambi.
As a result, a generation of baby boomers remember them as foundational Disney classics because shrewdly, Disney regularly replayed the most memorable parts of those films on his show, eventually priming them for a more successful theatrical re-release and permanent life as physical attractions at Disney parks. For an excellent example of this, just check out Sorcerer's Apprentice Mickey with that red robe and his wizard's hat. Probably the second most famous Mickey look ever, and it's from Fantasia, one of the least successful big Disney movies of all time. Now that is taking a lemon and turning it into lemonade. Now, with that context, ask yourself this. Why was such a huge chunk of Avengers Endgame dedicated to revisiting events from Thor: The Dark World of all movies? The most panned MCU production up to that point. Well, maybe, in true Walt form, Endgame was making that movie cool to revisit because, well, it might not be good, but let me tell ya, it pays off 13 movies down the line as part of this epic conclusion. And you see, that's Disney's other little secret to success here. Well, everyone thinks that they're in the movie business, they're really not. Or at least that's just a small portion of what they care about. They're actually in the IP business, owning cultural touchstones and then making money from all the clothes, toys, costumes, food tie-ins, and rides that stem off of it. Honestly, we could probably dedicate a whole video just to the idea that Disney, much like McDonald's, is a company just as much about theme parks and real estate as they are about movies and TV shows, but that's a digression for another day. If you're interested in seeing it, it is an episode that'll come out, so hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss it. But you see, that's the secret sauce here. For other movie studios, a film needs to earn a lot of money at the box office for it to be worth making. For Disney, earning a lot at the box office is just icing on the cake. Wow, a lot of people paid to go see our commercial for the new Captain America costume, the new Captain America shield toy, the new Captain America experience at the exciting Avengers campus at California Adventure, the largely empty theme park that no one really cared about. Again, this is them taking straw and spinning it into gold. Disney isn't interested in Marvel for just its movies, it's interested in Marvel as an IP creation machine. And as long as that brand is able to keep generating more fodder for merchandising opportunities, well then it's doing its job, and thus the movies will keep coming. Speaking of that Marvel theme park, by the way, Avengers Campus. Everything you need to know for today's theory is right there in the name. Campus, a term that denotes denotes training, turnover, and mobility, kind of like a university or an office environment where new recruits and new ideas are constantly going to be cycled in and out. There's a reason this experience isn't heavily branded around one particular superhero. It's because they're all disposable, except ironically enough Spider-Man, the one they don't own. It's built in a way where the Doctor Strange Portal show can be swapped out for the WandaVision Magic Show, or the Agatha Magic Show, or the America Chavez Magic Show. The success or failure of one character doesn't matter to the MCU. Another will rise to take its place, and Disney is comfortable with that. So the MCU can't die because Disney won't let it die? Yeah, kind of. If anything goes wrong, it'll just pull a Star War. It'll take a break for a year or two and then build its way back up slowly. Kind of like a canceled celebrity. No matter how bad it gets, they rarely stay canceled for long. But there's another factor here that's propping up the MCU, and it's the rest of the movie industry. You ever heard the phrase too big to fail? It was a phrase that was used a lot back in 2008 when the global economy collapsed due to, well, it collapsed due to a lot of shady stuff, but basically it was all tied back to the housing market. Anyway, at the time, the phrase too big to fail was used to describe companies that were seen as the equivalent of a load-bearing beam for a house. There's a lot of stuff depending on the stability of that beam. If you pull the beam out, the whole rest of the structure is gonna collapse. So when the beam starts having a problem, you don't pull it out and replace it. Instead, you repair it, or you do what it takes to reinforce it. Anyway, the reason I bring all this up is because the movie industry seems to see the MCU in the same way. Sure, every other studio would love to beat Marvel at the box office, but nobody actually wants to see them lose, because I suspect if Marvel loses, everyone does. The MCU might indeed be too big to fail. Consider this. Back in the day, movie studios routinely tried to beat each other at the box office, often releasing films competing for the same audiences with similar premises and similar genres on the same weekend. Just one random example here, in 1986, the original Top Gun spent several weeks duking it out for the #1 spot against another manly action movie, Cobra.
You're a disease, and I'm the cure.
Or you'd have summers where one studio would put out their volcano disaster movie, Dante's Peak, and a week or two later, someone else would challenge it with their volcano disaster movie.
You'll have a hell lot of time.
But if you hadn't noticed, or you're younger than, say, 20, this isn't really the case now. Now, studios tend to get projects out of each other's way. Disney and Warner Brothers don't open their Marvel and DC movies against one another on the same weekends. If you watch the weekly release schedules, there's usually only one big new movie per genre per weekend. And when a giant release like an MCU feature hits, everybody clears out of the way. So sure, in theory, in film theory, it wouldn't be all that hard for a rival studio to see something like Eternals or Black Widow on the slate, some of the riskier bets for Marvel, and then release their movie on the same weekend to steal away some of Marvel's thunder, cap it at the knees. From there, the rival studio would take the #1 slot for the weekend and show the world that Marvel isn't the invincible force that it appears to be. Suddenly, the seal of Marvel's vacuum hold over the movie industry is broken, Mickey gets an embarrassing black eye, and press and PR momentum carries it from there. I mean, we've seen this done before with other juggernauts. It's actually how the reality TV show Survivor managed to kill off Who Wants to Be a Millionaire back when it was king of prime time, which in and of itself is a really cool story. Hopefully I can figure out a way to shove into one of these someday. I mean, Venom 2's opening weekend of 90 million actually would have passed 3 out of 4 Marvel projects this year. It would have beaten Eternals, Black Widow, and Shang-Chi. Heck, even F9 would have come close. There is vulnerability in these movies. I just don't think anyone actually wants to take their shots. Why not? What's everyone so afraid of? Well, I suspect the fear is that Marvel is so big that if they go down, way too much of the movie business is brought down with them. It's that too big to fail problem all over again. Right now, people are excited to go see new Marvel movies on big screens. That is what's single-handedly keeping the theater experience alive. If Marvel suddenly goes away, well, theaters take another big hit, the media that covers Marvel takes a big hit, movie culture as a whole takes a huge step back, and nothing can truly fill the vacuum right now. At least nothing in Hollywood can fill that vacuum right now. But YouTube can, TikTok can. At the end of the day, going to see a movie is an expensive inconvenience. Surveys report that 70% of people would rather just stay at home to watch a movie. And that isn't just a pandemic thing. This was being reported on back in 2014, and again in 2017, in the middle of Marvel WrestleMania. While box office earnings have been surging every year, the actual number of tickets sold has been on a steady decline since 2002 as fewer people are going to the movies. Simply put, it's an antiquated entertainment format that, as TVs have gotten better and better, has lost more and more of its relevance. Marvel is the one thing currently that can get people to make going into the theater to watch a movie a priority in their life. And if it suddenly goes away, movies have lost their last major foothold. That time then goes to cheaper, more convenient entertainment options, video games, streaming, social media, digital video, and maybe they realize that there are suddenly more fun things to do on a Friday night than sitting in a sticky theater. I mean, in the last 4 years alone, the number of kids who watch online video every day has more than doubled. It's not so much Marvel versus other movies, it's the medium of movies versus every other form of entertainment. And in that fight, Marvel is throwing far and away the biggest hands. So will the MCU go away? No, because Disney and the entire movie industry will make sure that it doesn't go away anytime soon. But will the invincibility of the MCU go away? Yeah, each year it's becoming more vulnerable. There's only so many times that you can pull an Endgame or a No Way Home. You can't keep one-upping yourself forever. In fact, scaling out that big that quickly might have even shot themselves in the foot. Everything less than a three-way movie collab feels missable, feels like non-essential viewing at this point. So in summary, what can kill Marvel? Well, a few things as I see it. One, overextension of the brand and overemphasis of all the streaming stuff. I mean, no one wants going to the movies to feel like having to do homework. Two, Kevin Feige just piecing out as the guy who's been driving this whole ship towards one creative vision. After all, we saw what happened with both Star Wars and Harry Potter. Bad leadership immediately destroys what otherwise seems like a bulletproof brand. But the biggest thing that can truly kill off the MCU is number three, us. It's stuff like this video, the analog horror stuff that we cover here on YouTube, the indie games that are happening over on Game Theory, stupid TikToks that everyone's trying to recreate. Insert your favorite content creator here. At the end of the day, the MCU's true superpower is its cultural relevance, the fact that it's proven itself worthy of your time, but it's walking on a tightrope. One wrong step, or heck, not even, a few boring movies and the relevance is lost. The momentum is gone. You're off the train and, do you hop back on? Minecraft just had a big update and, oh man, Mr. Beast just recreated Squid Game. Whoa, Mandela Catalog just updated and what was I talking about again? Oh yeah, the MCU stuff. Yeah, I guess I'll get around to watching Hawkeye at some point. What is it they say? This is the way the Marvel Cinematic Universe ends. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut.